I never thought I'd be the type of person to share my life online, let alone spill something this personal. But after what happened, I need to tell someone. Maybe it's just for closure, or maybe I just want the world to know that karma has a way of working itself out. Either way, here it goes. My name is Laura, I'm 32, and up until a few months ago, I was planning the wedding of my dreams. I had the venue booked, the dress fitted, and every tiny detail down to the scent of the candles at the reception picked out. It was supposed to be perfect, except behind all of that, something ugly was brewing, something I was too blind to see for years. Enter Emma, my best friend since college, my ride or die, my sister from another mister, or so I thought. We'd been inseparable for over a decade, and I trusted her with everything. She was my maid of honor, my shoulder to cry on, the one person who had seen me through every heartbreak, every career struggle, every damn moment of my adult life. And yet, while I was busy planning the happiest day of my life, she was busy making sure it would be my worst nightmare. I just didn't know it yet. Looking back, the signs were always there, but I brushed them off because, well, I loved her. Not in a romantic way, obviously, but in that deep, unshakable way you love someone who's been a constant in your life. Emma had this way of making little digs sound like jokes, of turning my insecurities into casual conversation. "Oh, you're wearing that dress? Bold choice. Are you sure this venue isn't too ambitious for your budget? God, I could never handle a guy like Daniel. He's just so charming." I'd laugh along, thinking it was just her way of keeping things real, grounding me. But now I see it for what it was, a slow, calculated erosion of my confidence. And then there was Daniel, my fiancé, the man I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. We met at work. He was charismatic, ambitious, and had this way of making me feel like the only person in the room. I fell for him fast, and before I knew it, we were planning our future together. Emma, of course, played the role of the supportive best friend, always gushing about how lucky I was. But something felt off. The way she touched his arm when she laughed, the lingering eye contact, the private jokes I wasn't in on. I told myself I was being paranoid, that Emma would never cross that line, that Daniel loved me, but the truth has a way of sneaking up on you when you least expect it. The moment everything unraveled wasn't some grand, dramatic revelation. It was quiet, subtle. A text message I wasn't supposed to see. I had borrowed Emma's phone to take a picture of her for our bridesmaid group chat. She went to the bathroom, and as I was setting the photo up, a notification popped up. It was from Daniel. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. For a second, I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe he meant it in a friendly way. Maybe it was a joke. But deep down, I knew. I fucking knew. I didn't say anything right away. I couldn't. Instead, I let the rest of the evening play out like nothing had happened, nodding and smiling while my mind spiraled in 1,000 directions. How long had this been going on? Had they been sneaking around behind my back for weeks, months, years? And worst of all, how stupid did they think I was? The anger simmered under my skin like a slow burn, but I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. No, I was going to do something better. If they wanted to play dirty, I'd show them just how well I could play too. The next few days were excruciating. Every time Daniel kissed me, every time Emma sent a "love you babe" text, I wanted to throw up. But I held it together. I needed time. I needed a plan. Canceling the wedding would be too easy. It would let them off the hook, allow them to sneak away without consequences. No, they needed to feel the weight of what they'd done. They needed to be exposed in a way they'd never recover from. So I played my role. I gushed about the wedding, sent Emma dress fittings to approve, kissed Daniel like I hadn't read the words that ruined everything, and all the while I was planning their humiliation. I started small, subtle, dropping hints to see if either of them would crack. "Emma, I had the weirdest dream the other night," I'd say, watching her face. "You and Daniel were acting so strange, like you had a secret." She'd laugh, a little too forced, a little too breathy. "That's crazy," she'd say. "You're just stressed." Oh, I was stressed, all right. Stressed about how to make sure she'd never show her face in my life again. Daniel was just as clueless, kissing my forehead at night, telling me he couldn't wait to marry me. Liar. But that was fine. The show had to go on. And the wedding? Oh, the wedding was still happening, just not the way they expected. As the wedding day crept closer, my plan took shape. It had to be perfect. Not just revenge, justice. I wanted them to feel the weight of their betrayal in front of everyone who mattered. So I made some adjustments. First, I had my cousin who worked in graphic design help me create a slideshow for the reception. A surprise for Daniel, I told her, grinning through my teeth. She thought it was some romantic montage of our relationship. In a way it was, just not the version anyone expected. I also convinced my wedding planner to set up a microphone near the altar, ensuring that whatever was said during the ceremony would be heard loud and clear. The final piece? Emma's own damn vanity. She was obsessed with looking perfect, always checking her reflection, adjusting her dress, making sure every strand of hair was flawless. So I played into it. The night before the wedding, I gave her a gift, a delicate vintage hand mirror I had found at an antique shop. "Something old," I said sweetly. She loved it, carried it with her the entire morning while we got ready. She had no idea that in just a few hours, she'd be looking into that same mirror, watching her entire world come crashing down around her. The ceremony was everything I had planned, beautiful, elegant, and brimming with anticipation. The venue was packed with friends, family, and colleagues, all eager to witness what they thought would be the happiest day of my life. Emma stood beside me in her champagne-colored maid of honor dress, beaming like she wasn't the biggest snake in the room. Daniel looked every bit the devoted groom, gripping my hands with just the right amount of pressure, as if he actually meant the vows he was about to take. I almost admired their ability to lie so effortlessly. Almost. And then, right as the officiant reached the part where he asked if anyone had any objections, I took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Actually," I said, my voice carrying through the venue, "I have something to say before we continue." The room fell into a hush, and I could feel Emma stiffen beside me. Daniel's fingers twitched slightly against mine. This was it. I turned toward the crowd and gave them the performance of a lifetime. "I wanted to share something special with all of you, something I discovered just a few weeks ago, a reminder of what true love and loyalty look like." The slideshow began. At first, it was exactly what everyone expected. Pictures of Daniel and me throughout our relationship. Sweet, romantic, nostalgic. People smiled, some even teared up. But then, right when they were lulled into the warmth of our supposed love story, the images changed. Screenshots of text messages, photos of late-night meetups, a particularly damning selfie of Emma, taken in my own apartment, wearing one of Daniel's shirts. The crowd gasped. I could hear someone's fork clatter onto their plate. My mother let out a sharp, audible inhale. I turned to Emma then, and I will never forget the look on her face. Her skin went sheet white, her lips parted like she wanted to deny everything, but the proof was right there, playing out in real time. She clutched that stupid antique mirror in her hands, her knuckles white as if she could squeeze herself out of this reality. Daniel, on the other hand, went rigid, his expression flickering between shock and pure, unfiltered panic. I could feel his grip on my wrist, like he wanted to drag me away, stop the show. But I wasn't finished. Oh no, I was just getting started. I pulled my hand away from Daniel's grip, slowly, deliberately, like I was peeling something filthy off my skin. Then I turned back to the guests, my people, the ones who had gathered to celebrate what was supposed to be my wedding. "I know," I said, my voice steady despite the electric current of adrenaline running through me. "I know everything." The weight of my words sank into the room like a stone dropping into still water. People started murmuring, looking between Emma and Daniel, eyes wide with disbelief. Emma finally found her voice, but it was weak, trembling. "Laura, I didn't let her finish. Don't. Just don't." I turned my attention to Daniel, who still hadn't said a word. And you, I said, my tone now razor sharp. How long? How long were you planning to lie to me? To let me walk down this aisle like some pathetic joke while you were sneaking around with her? His mouth opened, then closed, his tongue darting out to wet his lips. He was calculating, trying to find an escape route, but there was none. Daniel finally found his voice, but it came out strangled, desperate. Laura, please, let's talk about this in private. I laughed. Actually laughed. A sharp, humorless sound that cut through the tense silence. In private? Oh, now you want privacy? Funny, because you didn't seem to care about privacy when you were sneaking around behind my back. My heart was pounding, but I felt weightless, untouchable. I turned back to the guests, addressing them like I was giving a toast. I spent months planning this wedding, making sure everything was perfect. But you know what? The best part? The real surprise? It's this moment, right here. I took a step closer to Emma, whose eyes were already welling with tears. She still clutched that antique mirror, her fingers trembling against the delicate frame. And you, I said, my voice dropping into something quieter, deadlier. My best friend, my maid of honor. How long have you been laughing at me behind my back? She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. It wasn't like that, she whispered. I tilted my head. Oh? Then what was it like? Please enlighten me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like that. Emma's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but no words came out. The silence was deafening, stretching so long that people in the crowd started shifting uncomfortably. My father was glaring at Daniel like he was seconds away from storming up there and knocking him out. My mother looked like she had just swallowed glass. And me? I was calm. The kind of calm that comes when you know you've already won. I turned to the officiant, who stood frozen, clutching his little book of vows like he had just been dragged into a crime scene. I think we're done here, I told him. Then I reached for the microphone one last time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming today. Please, stay, enjoy the food, the drinks. Hell, take home a centerpiece. This party is still happening, just without a wedding. A ripple of gasps turned into stunned silence. Then my cousin, bless her soul, started clapping. One by one, people joined in. And just like that, the wedding that never was turned into the best breakup party anyone had ever seen. Emma bolted first. She shoved the antique mirror into her purse and practically ran down the aisle, her heels clicking erratically against the marble floor. I watched her go, a mixture of satisfaction and disgust swirling in my chest. Daniel, on the other hand, just stood there, frozen in place, as if he still thought there was something to salvage. Laura, please, he said, stepping toward me, voice low and pleading. We can talk about this. I made a mistake, but... I put my hand up, stopping him mid-sentence. No, Daniel. You made a choice. Repeatedly. And now, you get to live with it. I felt nothing for him anymore. No anger, no heartbreak, just a detached sort of pity. He looked pathetic, standing there in his expensive tux, abandoned by both me and his secret mistress. You should probably leave before someone decides to throw cake at you, I added. A few people in the crowd chuckled, and I heard my aunt whisper to someone, "Oh, I'd pay money to see that." Daniel looked around, realizing for the first time that he had lost not just me, but the entire room. No one was on his side. My family, my friends, even some of his own groomsmen were avoiding eye contact, shaking their heads in disappointment. The reality sank in. He wasn't the charming, untouchable man he thought he was. He was exposed, stripped down to the liar and coward he had always been. With a heavy sigh, he turned and walked out, shoulders slumped, his once perfect posture shattered under the weight of his own choices. The second the door shut behind him, I felt it. Freedom. A lightness in my chest, like I had just put down a burden I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. And then, like a miracle, the tension broke. My cousin popped a bottle of champagne, and someone from the band started playing music. People hesitated for only a moment before laughter and chatter filled the room again. The wedding was over, but the party had just begun. And if there was one thing I was sure of, it was this. I may not have walked away with a husband, but I walked away with my dignity, and that was worth more than anything. As the night went on, I realized something incredible. I wasn't sad. Not even a little. If anything, I felt exhilarated. Everywhere I turned, people were raising their glasses to me, clapping me on the back, telling me I was a legend for pulling off the most satisfying revenge wedding in history. Even my grandmother, who had been clutching her pearls when the slideshow started, eventually leaned in and whispered, "I always thought he looked a little too smug." Emma and Daniel were ghosts by then, wiped from the evening like stains on a white dress. No one mentioned them. No one asked where they had gone. They had faded into irrelevance, exactly where they belonged. And me? I danced. I laughed. I took shots with my bridesmaids and let myself enjoy the night in a way I never thought I would. The dress I had chosen for his wedding had now become a symbol of my victory. I didn't need a groom. I didn't need a best friend who was anything but. I had myself, and that was more than enough. At some point during the night, I found myself outside, breathing in the cool air, letting the events of the evening settle. The city lights flickered in the distance, and for the first time in months, I felt at peace. No more second-guessing, no more paranoia, no more forcing myself to ignore the warning signs. I had cut out the rot, and what remained was something pure, something mine. As I stood there, sipping champagne and watching the night unfold, one of Daniel's groomsmen, Jason, stepped outside and leaned against the railing next to me. "I just want you to know," he said after a moment. "We all knew something was off with him. None of us had proof, but he never talked about you the way a man should talk about the woman he's going to marry." He shook his head. "But damn, Laura, I've never seen anyone go out like that. That was art." I smirked, swirling the champagne in my glass. "Art, huh? Maybe I missed my calling as a playwright." Jason chuckled, shaking his head. "Nah, I think you did exactly what needed to be done. I've never seen a guy crash and burn so hard in real time." He took a sip of his drink, then glanced at me with something almost like admiration. "For what it's worth, you deserve a hell of a lot better than him. And definitely better than her." That part hit differently. Emma. The betrayal that should have hurt the most. But now, it barely stung. Maybe because I had spent years thinking she was my sister, my ride or die, when in reality, she had been chipping away at me bit by bit. And the worst part? I let her, but not anymore. I set my glass down and turned to Jason. "You know what the best part of all this is?" He raised an eyebrow. "What?" I grinned. "I'm still the one who got the wedding gifts." Jason burst out laughing, nearly spilling his drink. "Damn, you really are ruthless." I just shrugged, feeling lighter than I had in years. Because it was true. The wedding gifts were still mine. The venue was still paid for. The honeymoon tickets, also mine. And I fully intended to use them, maybe with my cousin, maybe with a friend, or hell, maybe just by myself. A luxury vacation sounded like the perfect way to celebrate not marrying a lying cheat. As the night wound down, I looked around at the people who actually loved me, who had stood by me, supported me, cheered for me even when I had been too blind to see the truth. That's what mattered. Not a ring, not a man who never really deserved me, and certainly not a best friend who had been trying to dim my light for years. If anything, this wasn't just the best decision of my life. It was the best thing to ever happen to me. I had won. And they had to live with what they'd done. In the days that followed, the fallout was glorious. Word spread fast, faster than I even expected. By the time I woke up the next morning, my inbox was flooded with texts from people who had been at the wedding, and even some who weren't, but had already heard about it. Apparently, one of my guests had posted a vague but dramatic retelling on social media, and the comments were filled with people calling me a hero. Emma, predictably, tried to play the victim. She sent me a long, rambling message about how I had humiliated her, how I should have handled it privately, how she never meant to hurt me. I read it once, laughed, and blocked her number. As for Daniel, he didn't even try. No apology, no explanation, nothing. He just disappeared. Word on the street was that he had tried to reach out to some of my mutual friends for sympathy, but no one wanted anything to do with him. He was officially a pariah, and honestly, it suited him. But the real cherry on top? The financial damage. See, Daniel had insisted on putting a good chunk of the wedding expenses under his name, said it made more sense that way, since he had a higher credit limit. At the time, I thought it was sweet, responsible even. Now it was just poetic justice. The venue, in his name. The catering bill, his name. The floral arrangements, the DJ, even the custom tux he ordered and never got to wear. All his responsibility. And since he had been planning to merge finances with me after the wedding, he was left with a mountain of debt and no one to split it with. Emma, of course, had her own problems. The job she had worked so hard to get? Well, it turns out sleeping with your best friend's fiancé isn't the best look, especially when the workplace loves office gossip. Her boss, who happened to be friends with my uncle, caught wind of what happened and started looking a little too closely at her expense reports. A little fraud here, a little inappropriate use of company funds there, and just like that, she was out of a job. I didn't even have to lift a finger. Karma had done all the work for me. I wish I could say I felt bad, that watching them both crash and burn filled me with guilt, but the truth, it was satisfying. For years, I had given Emma the benefit of the doubt, ignored the little digs, let her manipulate me into thinking she had my best interests at heart. And Daniel? He had promised me forever while sneaking around behind my back. They had both played with my trust like it was disposable. Now, they were paying the price for it. The best part? I didn't even have to get my hands dirty. I didn't need revenge in the form of screaming fights or vandalized property. I simply put the truth out there and let it do the work for me. They destroyed themselves. Emma lost her job, her social circle, and whatever reputation she had built. Daniel? Last I heard, he had moved out of state, tail between his legs, running from the shame. They thought they had won, that they would get away with it. Instead, I walked away stronger, freer, and, let's be honest, richer. With all the wedding gifts, refunded deposits, and a very generous honeymoon package still in my name, I decided to take a well-earned break. I packed my bags, grabbed my passport, and jetted off to a 5-star resort that was meant to be for our honeymoon. Except now, it was my solo getaway, and I wasn't mad about it. There was something incredibly healing about sipping cocktails by the beach, completely unbothered, while the two people who tried to ruin my life were back home dealing with their self-made disasters. On my last night at the resort, I sat on the balcony, looking out at the ocean, reflecting on everything that had happened. I thought I would feel broken after all this, after the betrayal, the humiliation, the years I wasted trusting the wrong people. But I didn't. If anything, I felt whole. I had walked through fire and come out on the other side stronger, sharper, and so much more aware of my worth. I had lost a fiancé and a best friend, but the truth? I hadn't really lost anything. I had escaped. As I sipped my drink, letting the warm ocean breeze wash over me, my phone buzzed. A message from my cousin. "You won't believe this. Emma tried to reach out to Mom. She's saying she's the real victim and that you ruined her life." I rolled my eyes and chuckled. Of course she was playing the victim. People like Emma never take responsibility. They rewrite history to make themselves the tragic hero. But I didn't need to respond. I didn't need to defend myself. The truth was already out there, and anyone with half a brain knew exactly who the villain in this story was. I took one last deep breath, soaking in the moment. This was it, the final page of this chapter. I had spent so much time planning a life with someone who never truly,